Hey there, Kipsters. Mr. Piazzi here, and we're looking at objective 3C.1, which is all about unit conversions. It's part of this big unit on measurement and geometry, which is really how we deal with measurements, distance, and units. This is going to be a pretty quick presentation because it's really one skill. How do you convert measurements from one unit to another? So looking at number one, if something is 5 pounds, I want to know how many ounces is it. In order to do that, I'm always going to write a proportion that says, okay, 5 pounds, I want to know how many X ounces is that. In order to finish the proportion, I'm going to use the relationship between pounds and ounces that I either know or can get from my conversion table. I know that 1 pound is the same thing as 16 ounces. Let me clean that up. And so now I have a proportion that says 5 pounds over X ounces equals 1 pound over 16 ounces. And so that's my proportion. Now I need to solve it. I'm going to cross multiply 5 times 16, 1 times X. So 1 times X is equal to 5 times 16. 1 times X is really the same thing as X. And 5 times 16 equals 80. So X equals 80. And to take it completely back to its answer, that means 5 pounds is the same thing as 80 ounces. And that's my answer. Next, I'll look at number 3 that says 1,720 centimeters equals how many meters? Again, I'm going to write a proportion, starting with the information I have. 1,720 centimeters equals X meters. And finish the proportion using the ratio between those two measurements. I know that 1 meter is the same thing as 100 centimeters. And that's how I finish the proportion. Now I need to solve that proportion to figure out how many meters will be in 1,720 centimeters. So I'll cross multiply. 1 times 1,720 equals 100 X. To solve, I know that this is really the same thing as 1,720 equals 100X, and I need to divide both sides by my coefficient of 100. When I do that, the hundreds cancel, and X equals 1,720 divided by 100. Well, I can simplify that first by saying that's the same thing as 172 divided by 10. I know that 172 divided by 1 would be 172, but 172 divided by 10 is 17.2. 17 and 2 tenths. If I take that back, put it in, it should look roughly correct. If 100 centimeters is the same thing as 1 meter, that means 1,720 centimeters is the same thing as 17.2 meters. And that's my answer. Okay, at this point, we're already getting to guided practice. I'd like you to complete 10 and 12. But before you do, I'm going to give you the hint to say that for these problems, it's going to help if you know that for number 10, 1 gallon is the same thing as 4 quarts. 4 quarts. And for number 12, that 1 kilometer is the same thing as 1,000 meters. Stop here, write the proportions, and solve them to figure out how many gallons would be 15 quarts and how many meters would be 2.75 kilometers. Press play when you're ready to check your answer. Okay, you tried these, so you needed to check your answer. First is to write the proportion for each one. This first one, you know that 1 gallon is the same as 4 quarts, and to finish proportion, you're trying to figure out how many gallons would then be in 15 quarts, or how many gallons would 15 quarts be? Cross multiply, that's 15 times 1 is just 15, 4 times x, 4 times x, and then you divide by the coefficient, divide by 4, and divide by 4. When you do that, your coefficients cancel, and x equals 15 divided by 4, which would be 3 and 75 hundredths. So your answer should be that if 1 gallon is 4 quarts, that means 15 quarts is the same as 3 and 75 hundredths gallons, a little bit less than 4 gallons. Hope you got that right. Next one, number 12. 1 kilometer is the same thing as 1,000 meters, so that means 2.75 kilometers is the same as x meters. And you need to cross multiply and divide to solve it. Excuse me. That's 1 times x equals 1,000 times 2 and 75 hundredths. That means, excuse me, x equals 1,000 times 2.75, which is the same thing, this will come in a second, slow, which is the same thing as 2,750. And that should have been your answer of x equals 2,750. It should make sense because if 1 kilometer is the same as 1,000 meters, that means 2.75 kilometers is the same thing as 2,750 meters. Hope you got that right. So at this point, it's time for independent practice. I'd like you to try these 5 problems, converting these measures, round to the nearest hundredths place if necessary. To give you a little help, I'm going to make sure you have the ratios for each, the conversion ratios for each one. For number 6, it's going to help if you know that 1 liter is the same thing as 1,000 milliliters. For number 8, it's going to help if you know that 1 meter is the same thing as 1,000 millimeters. For number 17, that 1 foot is the same thing as 0.305 meters. For number 19, that 1 ounce is the same thing as 28 and 35 hundredths grams. And then last one for 21, that 1 pint is the same thing as 0.473 liters. Use all of these ratios to solve these problems. Round your answer to the nearest tenth if you need to. If you get 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 5, you have mastered this skill and are ready to retake Objective Assessment 3C.1. Good luck.